Once upon a time, there lived a young girl named Igo. Igo had a talent for cooking that was unmatched by anyone in the village. She grew up with her grandmother, who taught Igo all she knew. Her dishes were so delicious that people from near and far came to the market square where she sold food just to eat at her food stand. Every morning, she prepared her meals with care, adding just the right ingredients and stirring each pot with love. People would line up eagerly, waiting to taste whatever she had prepared for the day. Living nearby was Igo's friend and neighbor, Bui. At first, Bui had been happy for her friend and eagerly tried to learn from her sometimes. But as Igo's popularity grew, a shadow of jealousy darkened Bui's heart. She watched with envy as villagers praised Igo's cooking and spoke about her as the best cook in the land. Bui longed for the same admiration and attention, and she began to wonder what Igo's secret was. Maybe she's using some form of dark magic or recipes, Bui said as she thought out loud one day. That evening, Bui decided to find out. She waited until Igo began to cook in her backyard. She quietly crept behind the trees, hoping to see the secret ingredient that made Igo's food so special. But try as she might, Bui heard or saw nothing unusual. Igo was simply humming to herself and cooking with joy as she always did. Bui grew frustrated and started hatching a plan. I must find a way to remove Igo from the village entirely so I could take her place as the most celebrated cook, she muttered to herself. In a week's time, the queen announced a royal cooking contest, with the winner to be crowned the royal chef. Everyone was excited, and some people already knew that Igo would end up emerging the winner. Bui was ecstatic and nervous as well. I really deserve this big shot, but that girl Igo would be my only roadblock, she said. Bui saw this as her chance. If only she could get rid of Igo, she would surely win the contest and earn fame and fortune. After a month, the first round of the competition commenced. There were 10 registered competitors, and only 3 would move to the finals. Igo was relaxed as she was going to make a delicious pot of her soup using her grandmother's recipe. Bui stood opposite Igo and stared at her with so much anger. She was determined to do everything it took to ensure that Igo did not emerge the winner. The competition commenced, and the candidates got to work. Some were making local dishes, and others foreign dishes. Igo gracefully hummed her song while she prepared her soup, while Bui was making a pot of egusi soup. At the end of the competition, the queen was to announce the candidates that would move to the finale. The ladies lined up in front of the crowd, and the queen announced, after much deliberation by the judges, Igo, Omar, and Bui will be moving to the finale. The crowd erupted into applause, and Igo rushed to Bui, her friend, to give her a hug, not knowing that Bui was boiling with rage at her success. The next day, Bui sat in front of her house, restless. She wasn't even focused on her achievement of making it to the final round of the competition. She was so consumed by envy that her whole mind and heart were focused solely on making sure her friend Igo failed. Should I tamper with her ingredients? What can I possibly do to eliminate Igo from this competition? Bui paced from one corner of her compound to the other, strategizing ways to make her friend fail. Meanwhile, Igo was immersed in her practices, trying out new spices, herbs, and recipes in order to decide the best meal to make on the day of the finale. One day, as Bui lay on her bed still orchestrating her plan in her head, an idea struck her. She jumped from her bed excitedly and headed over to Igo's house. She approached Igo with a fake smile, pretending to be supportive and friendly. Igo, my dear friend. I found a spot in the forest that has a lot of new and secret herbs that could make our dishes even more delicious, she said, her voice sweet and treacherous. It's hidden deep in the forest, and it's rumored that whoever uses those herbs to make a pot of food, even kings dare not reject the food. But I don't need some secret or unknown herbs to cook, my friend. I may not have use for it, Igo replied gently. Bui thought for a while on how best to lure Igo to go with her since it seemed her plans were already failing. But Igo, can't you accompany me as your friend? You may not need the secret herbs or ingredients, but I do. I am not a talented cook as you, Bui responded, trying to lure Igo with blackmail. Igo, being a trusting and kind-hearted person, smiled back, her eyes lighting up as she shrugged her shoulder. Okay, I'll accompany you. But since the competition is tomorrow morning, we must go right away and make it back in time to rest for the big day, Igo said. Oh, Igo, that sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for helping me. Let me go get ready, Bui whispered with a slight grin on her face. At sunset, the two friends set off into the forest, which was known to be enchanted and mysterious. Bui was holding a small lantern that cast light on the path as they walked deeper into the woods. The trees grew taller, their twisted branches casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. Soon, they reached a clearing, and Bui pointed to a path that led even deeper into the forest. The herb is just down that path, Bui said, her voice a little shaky. Let's go. Unaware of Bui's true intentions, Igo trusted her friend and walked down the path with her. But only after a few steps, Bui turned to her and said, Wait here, I need to put some dry leaves inside this lantern. Igo waited close to a bamboo tree, and Bui started going back without her knowledge. She was wiping the foot trails as she snuck out of the forest, leaving her friend stranded without light or any trails to retrace back to the village. After a while, everywhere was quiet and still. Igo felt uneasy and called out to her friend. She screamed Bui's name many times, but no one answered. Igo's heart sank as she realized she had been betrayed. She tried to retrace her steps, but their foot trail had vanished, and all around her were thick trees looking exactly the same. Igo wandered the forest, searching for a way out, but it seemed that every path led her deeper into the woods. Night fell deeper, and with it came a chilling sound of howling animals and rustling leaves. Igo huddled under a tree, feeling scared and alone, wondering why her friend could do this to her. Just then, a faint light appeared in the distance. Curious and hopeful, Igo followed the light until she reached a small clearing. In the center of it stood a mysterious woman dressed in a shimmering robe. Why are you trespassing into my home? She asked with a thunderous, husky voice. Igo felt cold chills run down her spine. Please, Ma, I am lost. We came in here to look for special herbs, and I lost my way. I do not mean to trespass, Igo said with a shaky voice. Herbs? There are no herbs made for cooking in this part of the forest. You must have been misled, the woman said thoughtfully. Very well, young one. I can show you the way back, but first, you must complete a test to prove you are worthy of my assistance. Only then will you find your way out of this forest. Determined to make it back, Igo nodded, ready to face the challenge. For the test, the mysterious woman led Igo to a grove filled with small plants that smelled so nice, like nothing she had ever smelled. My son has been ill for many, many years now. He barely eats anything. I have tried many different recipes and meals, but nothing suits his taste. Can you try to make something from these ingredients and herbs? The woman said, pointing at the plants. If he eats it, I will show you the way out. Igo was a bit skeptical at this time, almost sweaty from anxiety. But what if he doesn't like my food? She stammered. I will still reward you for the effort and show you the way out, the woman replied. This set Igo's mind at peace, and so she started to cook. She put firewood together and prepared a delicious pot of potato porridge with the ingredients the woman gave her. She served it in a wooden plate and presented it to her. The woman took the plate and disappeared into the woods. Igo sat on a log of wood, awaiting the verdict while praying silently for the woman's son. After a while, the mysterious woman reappeared with an empty plate, her face beaming with a bright smile. Young woman, you have saved my son. He accepts your food. Igo was thrilled to not only hear that her skill had saved her, but most especially that it had saved someone's life. By this time, the sun was already rising. The mysterious woman held her hand and led her through a narrow, dark pathway until they arrived at the backyard of the palace. Go now, the competition is about to begin, she said, pointing towards the queen's palace. Igo thanked her and hurried down the path, her heart racing with joy and relief. She reached the palace just in time for the royal cooking contest. As she approached, the villagers cheered loudly, glad to see her safe. Bui was shocked when she saw Igo walking up to her stand, looking as strong and radiant as ever. She was already preparing her dish for the competition, smugly confident that she would win now that Igo was out of the way. Igo's reappearance disorganized her as she hid her face in shame. When the allocated time was up, the queen arrived, ready to judge the contest. Igo presented her dish, a savory stew made from fresh ingredients and spices, carefully balanced to perfection. Bui presented her dish. Her meal was bland and almost made the queen nauseous. Unknown to Igo, the queen was the mysterious woman she cooked for while she was lost in the jungle, and the young prince was the son she had talked about. The queen announced to the village that Igo had been chosen as the royal chef. The queen also narrated how Bui betrayed Igo by abandoning her all by herself in the forest so that she would miss out on the competition. I am highly disappointed in you, Bui, the queen said sternly. Bui bowed her head in shame as the crowd gasped in shock at the revelation. Bui was punished for her deceit. She was banned from cooking at the market and was to volunteer for community service for a whole year in reparation. As for Igo, she went on to live a happy life cooking for the queen and her son, sharing her food with the people of her village. She remained humble, grateful for her gifts, and continued to pour her heart into every meal she prepared. This is the end of my story. I hope you learned something from this story. Please, if you haven't subscribed, kindly click on the subscribe button. Be a part of my growth. Turn on the notifications so that when I post more interesting stories, you'll be the first to get them. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for your consistent support.